Om Jai Jai Sai Ma, everyone. Let's take a deep breath together. And I welcome you. I just welcome you warmly with Sophie Michaud is here with me.
Om Jai Jai Sai Ma.
For our satsang, our community satsang call, Transfiguration of the Physical Body, a continuation of the webinar we had last month. We're going to speak about the transfiguration of the body. What does it mean to be a Magdalena practitioner? What does it mean in terms of the body? And we're going to dive deeper into this topic and explore it, answer some of your questions. And I'm really honored to be with you in this call. So usually our plan, I know you'll love that, for how we do the community calls, we're to come together and you could ask your questions of the speaker. But unfortunately, Achyutananda Dasi, although he tried so hard to be here with you, could not get this particular weekend off, or his schedule for the month of June was not very cooperative for us, for our needs, for, you know, but as we know, we're blessed to have him at any moment. So what we did was in Sedona, we gathered questions, and in Sedona, Lalita had an opportunity to meet with him and to go deeper into the physical body. So, and the call was so amazing. It was so, it just kept unfolding. I was there with her at some points. We were asking him questions, and it kept unfolding. It was so powerful that we decided to use it as this gathering in its entirety. I'm sure each one of us will move to a deeper level of understanding of the importance of the physical body, especially in our role as Magdalena practitioners. So I welcome you. I'm very grateful you're here. I invite you to just sink in and relax and enjoy this webinar, or this community call, excuse me. So together, let's take a breath. As we open our crown chakra even further in our alignment, our higher self, I am presence, Atma, Ma, we've been learning, moving up to the higher chakras above the body, 8th, 9th, 10th, the 11th, the 12th, breathing in the Antakarana. Bringing the light, the knowingness, the brilliance into the physical body now. With each breath saying yes. Bringing this light with another breath into your subtle bodies around the physical body. Yes. And then with another breath, this light all the way down to the core of Mother Earth. As you stand as a pillar of light on this planet. Yes. Yes. Now invoke the presence of Sai Ma, Master Jesus, of Mary Magdalena. Breathe and welcome the grace that they're pouring into to you. Bathe in that grace. And now linking from your heart to the heart of everyone in this Magdalena grid. English speakers, the French speakers, the German speakers, the Spanish speakers, Japanese, all around the globe, see this Magdalena energy encircling it. Feel the love and support of the grid itself, of your community. Yes. And now with another deep breath, allow yourself to bring your awareness back here to the webinar, the conference, the community call. Opening your hearts, your eyes, as we listen.
JJ Saima.
I'm JJ Saima.
This is Lalita Shree Dasi, and I'm here with Achyutananda Das in beautiful Sedona. We just did the Vortex tours today. The energy is very, very powerful. And we're here together to dialogue about the physical body. We did our webinar and learned all this incredible knowledge about how to care for the physical body, what all of the nutrients that can support our physical body, and how to deprogram, reprogram the information in the body. So we put it out for people to ask questions of Achyutananda Das. And we'd love to hear from you all of your knowledge about the physical body to answer some of our questions. Achyutananda Das.
Thank you, Lalita. So in our webinar, we touched upon several key topics. We talked about mastery and how mastery presents itself in relation to the body, what opportunities lie for us there. We also talked about patterns and how patterns manifest with the body, our relationship with the body, our relationship with how we nourish the body, food, exercise. And then we spoke about programming. We spoke about deprogramming and reprogramming at the level of the cells, at the level of our genetic makeup. And we finished with where we are headed, the arc, what's in store for humanity, what is the human body evolving into, this crystalline light body that we spoke of on the call. So the invitation went out to ask questions in regards to the physicality, in regards to the webinar. When I saw the questions, I was disappointed. This is an opportunity to dive so deep into the fundamentals of being a human here on this planet. And yet the questions were very superficial. The questions were about personal concerns, and that's fine. Each concern is an opportunity. And yet, if we don't ask the right question, we can't get the appropriate answers. And so I was disappointed. And the invitation here, in this disappointment, in this call, is to learn to ask the questions that matter. Dive deeper. Dare to go deeper. What really matters? And so if I were to have been given this invitation to ask a question, I probably would have asked something like, what is the physical body? I would have asked, why do we have a physical body? Why is this happening? These fundamental questions, if we can really get that, then the superficial, the small questions will automatically be answered. There won't be a need to get that information elsewhere.
So Achyutananda Das, what is the physical body?
So one of the things that is an ongoing invitation is not ever to use the mind only as a means of gathering information. Even in the words that Lalita and myself are sharing right now, it's not just for the mind. In fact, the smallest portion of it is for the mind. The rest of it is for the whole of who you are. This is about learning to know, knowingness, wisdom on a deeper level. The physical body is an interface. As a soul, as a being, we've made a choice to evolve in a very unique way. And there really is nothing like being a human on this planet in the whole of cosmos. This is one of the most unique opportunities for a soul to come on this planet. And we've been given that opportunity. So the physical body itself is conscious. The matter is consciousness. And that consciousness, that conscious light that is the body, is an interface so that we can interact and engage in this world together. That's one level of it. And keep in mind to go within, feel what that feels like. Feel the knowingness that is there. Ask yourself, what is the physical body? And see what answers arise for you.
Wow. So then the next question is, why do we have a physical body?
Imagine for a moment you are a cosmic being that has no end. And there is this grand experiment on a small planet, on a part of a galaxy, tucked away in the universe, and you choose to go into that experiment and to take form. This process of the fullness and the wholeness of who you are, compacting itself into the size of a cell, is involution. This is the soul's process of incarnating. And you can imagine taking something so huge and vast into something so small and compact and dense. You can only fit so much. That often what happens, as we all have this experience, many of us, that we don't remember who we are. We don't remember the vastness of our true self. We don't remember our multidimensionality. That's one leg of the journey, is this involution. The body can allow us to take that second leg of the evolution, where this physical vessel can now join us on the journey to expansion. So before we dive into that, one thing to remember, the body evolves as distinct from our evolution. The mind, our energy, our energetic bodies, we can evolve these, and yet the physicality, given that it has its own consciousness, can have ego. Ego can be in the cells. A fear of death can be in the cells. That contraction can be in the cells, even though we may be evolving and expanding. And so the invitation of this grand experiment is to bring this higher frequency light, bring the highest of yourself, bring these frequencies, these cosmic frequencies, down into the physicality, so the physical itself can evolve. This process, this is the transfiguration that Ma often speaks of. This is ascension, where the physical itself vibrates faster and eventually transmutes into something altogether different. This is a different state of matter. We begin to speak of the plasma aspect of the body, a state of matter where there's a total freedom. But we'll go into that in a future call, perhaps.
So are you saying that the actual molecules of my body transform into a different substance as I bring more high frequency energy?
The physical matter changes. The physical matter changes. And Ma has said this many times, that we are moving from carbon-based life forms. And we're moving to a life form that is faster, more refined. There's more space and more light in the body that we are evolving into. And so the question is why? Why is this happening? Why is this evolution? Why is this body expanding? And why more space? And why faster? It's about information. The body as it stands right now can only hold so much of the vastness of who we are. Without a new physical vessel to hold that fullness, that I am, that we are, that highest of ourselves, we would need a physical body capable of withstanding that energy. In this instant, if I were to take the fullness of my I am presence and fully embody it right now in who I am, my body would turn to ash. Because this vessel, I know, is not at a place that I can withstand that. And yet what's happening is an evolution of the body to be able to. An analogy that we discussed earlier before this call with Mary was, imagine you have a regular four-door sedan. You're giving regular fuel to it. If you were to then take that fuel and put it inside a jet engine, you would break the jet engine. It would not function. And that's because that vessel requires something different, is able to handle something much more refined, which is jet fuel, which I think is blue.
Really?
Yeah.
So how does that relate to my everyday life? I get it at a macro
Yeah.
level, but here I am on planet Earth where there's lots of distortion, lots of food that's low quality, and there's dis-ease in my body. So how do I bring all of those grand concepts and create a body of light in my everyday life?
Excellent question. So how is the body formed on a day-to-day basis? We know that cells turn over, right? We know that red blood cells reform. We know platelets reform. We know even skill cells slough off and recreate themselves. This is constantly happening. So the body that you have now is not the body you had 7 years ago, right? That's very clear. Hopefully we all know this. The question is, what building blocks, which atoms were used to form this body that we have? Where did those atoms come from? Where did those building blocks come from? They came from what was nourished to the body. They came from the body's environment. And ultimately they are formed by the thoughts and the emotions that we have during that period of time. So when we talk about refining the body is constantly being recreated. From what? I can build a castle with mud, or I can build a castle with diamonds, with stone, with high quality material, right? It's an altogether different castle. Yes, the structure might look the same, but it is a different castle altogether.
So all of this I see as so important for us as Magdalena practitioners, and for us to be able to hold these very high frequency energies that Ma's pouring into us, we have to have really strong physical bodies. And we received a lot of questions about, a lot of really specific questions about how do I cure this condition, or I have issues with food, in so many words, and how do I know what kinds of foods to eat? Like all of these specific things in our everyday life. So how do we, in our individual conditions in our bodies, without giving every single person a protocol to follow, right? How do we achieve those strong physical bodies and give our bodies the building blocks that we need to create vehicles of light?
Yeah. One of the first points to keep in mind is when you ask a question, are you asking for someone to tell you what to do? Or are you moving within to the knowingness that is there present for you to get that answer? So if someone were to ask me, well, should I have a vegan diet? Should I be vegetarian? Is it okay to be an omnivore? What about the paleo diet? These sort of questions. There's no one right answer for everyone. It's obvious. Yet we continue to ask others to tell us what to do. Right? One, we're giving away our power. And two, we totally miss the opportunity to develop a deeper relationship with the knowingness, the wisdom that's within. So very simple thing to do, very practical thing to do. Next time you're about to nourish the body and go have food, you're going to the kitchen to prepare something, or you're in a restaurant, look at what you're about to eat or what you're choosing. Just look at it. Take a moment, breathe, move within, move into a place where you're aligned with your higher self. Move in that alignment, and then ask yourself, how does it feel if I were to imagine this food inside the body? Just imagine eating it. Does it feel contracted? Or is there an expansion there? Or nothing? Begin to develop this awareness of what you put into the body. And everything is energy. So it's simply a matter of stopping, pausing long enough to feel what that is. Is there a resonance with that item, with that food, and the body? And if there is, you will feel it. That said, one thing that came up earlier, Lalita, was, well, maybe I'm not there yet. Maybe I'm not at a place where I can feel that energetic difference. what I would say is first go back to the basic principles of learning to feel energy. Putting the palms, facing the palms with each other in front of you, feel that magnetic energy. Learn to feel energy again. So that this is a critical skill to develop. We must, as healers and as light workers, we must be able to differentiate something of high vibration with low vibration. That is a must. That is beyond a must. That we should be there at this point. And if not, then let's work on it. When we go there, when we're with a food and an item that's in front of us, if it's good for the body, you will see that resonance there. If you're not able to detect a change, no contraction or expansion, ask yourself, is this processed? How is this food alive in the sense that it was just picked from a farm recently, or has it been sitting on a shelf maybe for months? Right? These are some basic questions we can ask ourselves about what's good and what's right. Is it heavy with preservatives? There's a lot of literature out there about certain preservatives having harmful effects on the brain and the body. We know this, and I invite you all to dig into that research. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, and we had one question about does live food mean raw food? And just think of a plant that's growing in the earth right now and look at how much life is in that plant. And then what happens when we cut it, right? How long does it take for the life to come out of that plant? And when we prepare our food, what happens to the life in that plant? So we all can know inside of ourselves what has life and what doesn't have any life. Peas that have been in a can for 5 years, how much life is in that? How long ago did that come from the earth? So it's not about necessarily cooked versus raw, though there's tons of information out there about how different ways of cooking food will preserve the life force in it. But it's really about when there's food in front of you, how much life do you feel in it? And I think we can all answer that question.
I just thought of something, Lalita. If one thing that I would try is to go to your kitchen, take everything that's in your kitchen right now, take everything in the cupboards and the shelves, just put it on a counter somewhere, and go through each one and just feel. What does it feel like? Is there a contraction there? Is there an expansion there? Do I feel an aliveness coming from this? Just go through everything in your kitchen. You'll be surprised to see what you find.
Yeah, and something that I experienced so I've had rheumatoid arthritis since I was 2 years old. And I grew up with a lot of pain and swelling and discomfort in my body. And my mom educated me about what foods my body was sensitive to and what was healthy, and gave me the freedom to eat what I chose. And there was a point when I was a teenager where I made a decision to cut out everything from my diet that caused more swelling. And with total discipline, cold turkey, I cut out so many things from my diet. And at first it was uncomfortable. I'd be at a pizza parlor with my friends drinking water. And then there was a point that was very distinct when I could feel everything I put in my mouth, or even before I put it in my mouth, I could feel how it would affect my body. I didn't need the rule book of this is what your blood test says you're allergic to, right? And once my body was clean of all the things that caused the swelling and the pain, it could then tell me what was healthy and what wasn't. Instead of, before I probably had all this candida, maybe, all kinds of bugs. Who knows what was there that was feeding off of the sugars and the wheat and the dairy and all those things. Once my system was clear of that, it had a clear plate to just say, here's what I want, here's what I don't want. So in my experience, there is something really valuable in discipline. And then when we're in a healthy lifestyle, our body will tell us what to do. if we can listen to it. But there is a point that we may have to pierce through like an inertia before our body can really have that accessible.
Yeah. And as you're sharing, Lalita, the thought occurred to me, this is so wonderful that food and our relationship with food gives us so many opportunities to grow. I can imagine being a teenager with your friends, right? And you want to fit in and whatnot. And then this is an opportunity for you to stand strong and declare who you are and what your choices are. And if need be, you share why. You know, there's so much of that. I mean, I remembered my decision to remove meat from my diet when I was younger, and the opportunities that came up with that, with others. And it was a chance for me to get rid of my patterns around how I relate to others and just learn to stand strong. I'm not saying that that's something you should do in those of you who are hearing this, but that there are so many other opportunities. And one of the things that came up in the questions was patterns, a lot of patterns around how we nourish the body and the conflicts that we might have of wanting a particular item, whether it's sugar or coffee or sweets, and knowing that it's bad for us. You know, that conflict that we step into is a choice. It's never not a choice. And so the real question is, what do we choose? And as Lalita so clearly pointed out, when you choose powerfully. Just say, this is it. I'm choosing this. And go with it.
Yeah. It's so easy to just play games with ourselves.
Oh my gosh.
And make excuses and like either enjoy that coffee 1,000,000,000%, or freaking don't drink it.
Yeah.
Like don't do the in between.
Right.
Or be really conscious that that's what you're doing. But there's so much power in just making a decision, and we have to enjoy our food. The pleasure that we get from our food and our state of mind while we're putting something into our body is more important than what we're actually putting into our body.
Oh, I have a wonderful story for you, Lalita. So this is lovely. I'll share a lovely story from the Puranas. There's a story about Balakrishna. And Krishna is across the river in a small tent. And he is waiting for all of his gopis. And the gopis are on the other side of the river, and they're looking for Krishna, right? They want to prepare a meal for Krishna when he arrives. So they create this huge feast. It's gorgeous. And the gopis leave, and Radha comes and then sits down and starts to eat the food that was prepared for Krishna. And Krishna is on his way back, but by the time he comes, the gopis come at the same time, and the gopis see that all the food is gone, and they get so upset, like, why were you eating this? And Krishna comes, and he says, I am so full. And he's like, what do you mean you're so full? We had all this food for you. We were waiting for you to come eat. And he said, every time Radha would eat food, she would think of me, and I was nourished by that. And I think of that often when I eat food. I think when I'm placing this food into the Agni of my stomach, into the fire of my stomach, is that being offered in the way that I would offer to a homa in a yagya? Is it being offered in the way that I would give something to God, to Ma, right? That level of reverence and love and respect and joy is possible for us when we nourish the body.
Wow. Love that.
I'd like to share an experience that I had very recently with another student. And in the conversation that I was having with this student, it was around how she treated her body, around how the body was nourished, around exercise and this sort of thing. And the languaging that was used had me realize, gave me a glimpse into her relationship with the body. And I said, do you realize that the language that you're using makes it seem as if your relationship with your body is very hostile. And so there was an opportunity for awareness in that. And it made me think, how many of us have a hostile relationship with our body? Or if not hostile, then antagonistic or some sort of conflict with the body. I invite you to go within and ask yourself, is there any of that anywhere? And it may not be with the body, but maybe with an aspect of the body that you don't like or that you're frustrated with. And in that, I invite you to shift that relationship. Imagine this body as a being. And you can imagine, I just thought that occurred to me right now is, imagine you are at home and it's cold and rainy and wet outside, horrible weather outside, and there's a knock on the door. And you open the door and there's this young child who's clearly homeless and cold and needs to be fed. What would you do in this moment? Most of us naturally would welcome this child in, right? There's this feeling of compassion that wells up from within. We want to care for this child, love the child. Move into that relationship with the body, loving the body. Be tender with the body. Touch the body. Have the body feel that tenderness. Have the body feel that, yes, there is someone out there. Yes, there is something out there that loves me unconditionally. Unconditionally. The cells may be in a state of contraction and fear. Am I going to die? What's going to happen? Be that presence that loves unconditionally in the face of no matter what. Imagine how the body would behave and live knowing that you loved it unconditionally. Be there. Be in that place of tenderness.
Yes, being tender with our bodies. That is so, so important. Because all of that is information that we're putting into our bodies. In the webinar, you spoke to us about deprogramming and reprogramming the information in our DNA. And we had a few people ask a question. You shared with us to speak to our DNA and say, I do not believe in death. And people are asking, we've been taught that when we use the word not, our subconscious doesn't hear that word. It just hears death. So can you share with us more about why we do this practice and we speak to the DNA and say, we do not believe in death?
So one thing to keep in mind is, what's the intention with our work with the DNA? The very first thing that needs to happen before DNA can fully embody the I am and evolve is deprogramming of all the false codes of the limited information that exists in the DNA. Now, this limited information, this false information, comes from many sources. It comes from our environment. It comes from what we put into the body. It comes from in utero. It comes from those around us. All of this information is constantly programming our DNA in a particular way and in a way that limits us. So the very first thing that needs to happen is we need to deprogram that. We need to remove those false codes, that false information, and then we reprogram the information. So saying the act of deprogramming DNA comes in the form of developing a relationship with the DNA, first and foremost. Enter into a dialogue. When Ma shared this with me as a tool, Ma said, enter into a dialogue with your DNA. Go down to that level. And then at this point, as we shared in the webinar, speak to the DNA. Deconstruct and deprogram this belief in death. You are giving the DNA new information and removing these barriers. And you say, I do not believe in death. You are telling that to the DNA. That is the first step, deprogramming. And you are speaking to the DNA, not to the subconscious. So this idea of how it hears not and whatnot doesn't exactly translate here. The first step is speak directly to the DNA, say, I do not believe in death. And then you don't just leave it there. As Ma said, whenever we transmute and clear, there's a void, there's an empty space. Fill it with what you choose at this point. At this point, we choose life. We program the DNA with life. I am life. I am eternal. I am everlasting. Speak to the DNA and have that be the new information. So this is unique in that we are deprogramming first and reprogramming the DNA. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's powerful. I can feel it just as you're speaking.
One thing to keep in mind is what's been going on with the DNA for thousands of years. Humanity has within its genetic code, a belief in death. The cellular structure has death as a reality. This is part of the false matrix. Ma speaks of this often. This is part of this interconnected matrix that keeps us limited, keeps us small, keeps us in mass consciousness, in darkness. In order to come out of that, we must remove that programming, destroy and break down that programming. The image I had when Ma shared this with me was as if we are wishing to build a new house. We could make patchwork changes to the house we have, or we can take a bulldozer, bring it, and completely demolish that house and rebuild something magnificent, new, where that house was. And the energy behind that is what I felt when Ma was sharing how to deprogram the DNA. Go into a place of alignment. Go into a place where you are, as Ma shared, 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock, completely aligned with the I am presence, with the higher self. And from that space of alignment, from the space of total knowing that you are a being that is infinite, that lives forever, from that space, speak to the DNA and say, I do not believe in death. I do not believe in death. Tell that to the DNA and demolish those codes like that bulldozer. And now in that space, in that void, the DNA is open and welcome. And now you fill that space with new information, with a reprogramming. I am life. This can be done every day as a sadhana.
Wow. The image that I have is Durga with her sword, just cutting through the illusion. And that it takes that kind of ferocious power to say, no, this is false. And then bringing what is truth.
Yeah. And that's a really good teaching, Lalita. Any time in life where you see falsehood, call it out. Say no. Even if it's something so small. Let's say someone gives you a meal at a restaurant and it wasn't exactly what you ordered. As an example, because this happens often in my experience when I've been with Ma. Ma will not tolerate the smallest. Ma will totally call it out and tell the waiter, I told you this, and this is not what I received. It starts with the small things. And that way, when something big happens, we have the momentum to continue to call out this falsity and to live in truth.
Yeah, and the first step is starting with ourselves. Everywhere that we create falsehood through our mind, the falseness in our DNA, all of that information. It's fantastic teaching. So we received another question about, we all live busy lives. What do we do to create that balance in our lives, to create that healthy lifestyle?
First, to be aware, and that will always be the first step in anything that you do, is awareness. We cannot begin to make the choices that serve us if we are not first aware. So be aware of where there is lack of harmony in life. Be aware of there is lack of balance in life. And if one took a moment, if we took a moment and rested in that awareness, it would become obvious. If there was a lack of harmony, if it was imbalance, it would be apparent. First, awareness. And then you can use some of the teachings and the tools to make a choice for balance and for harmony. And we can speak about a couple now. Lalita, sure?
Yeah, I think there's tremendous value in choosing one thing, because there's 100 different things that we could do right now to live a healthier lifestyle, right? But what is that one thing that'll make the biggest difference today? And in my experience, the best way to create a new lifestyle is to create a routine around it. Like, I don't have to think about when it's going to happen. I just know that every day, this is what I do. For me, I love eating healthy food. And one of my favorite foods is sprouts. I love growing sprouts. And it's just a routine. I soak my sprouts. Before I go to bed, I think, is there anything I need to soak for cooking tomorrow? And then the next day, I have a really easy meal to prepare. And that's just one little thing. And it's just part of my everyday life. I don't even have to go out of my way to think about it or make something happen. So choose one thing and then make it a routine, because our brain loves habits. And if we create a habit, we don't ever have to think about it again. We just do it.
And I love that, Lalita. That's so good. If the task, I can imagine someone says, okay, the one thing that I'm going to do is give up coffee, right? If this has been an ongoing struggle for you or for a person, and it is clearly a choice that you are going to stop this, bring awareness to every part of your day that might bring you in contact with coffee, and make choices accordingly. Start to live a life where that's no longer part of your day. Maybe I can speak to some of my colleagues where a lot of coffee exists. They alter their commute to swing by coffee shops and whatnot. And that's the sort of thing that we can, if we say, okay, no, I'm not going to drink coffee anymore, we can start to make lifestyle changes. But just focus on that one thing. Don't add something else. Stick with that one thing for weeks. And that will build a fortitude of will.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing is that there's kind of two ways to look at it. Either we're taking something away that we're doing already that's harming our body, or we're adding something that is more healthy for our body. And I encourage you, if you are looking at quitting or stopping something that you're doing that you would call a bad habit, what can you add that will give you that nourishment and the fulfillment that you're currently filling with something that may be harming your body? And look at where is the hole for you, and how can you bring more joy or more nourishment where you're currently filling it with something else.
That's excellent.
Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot of other really specific questions that we haven't answered. And the reason for that is, one, this is not a nutrition seminar. We're not going to give medical advice. but more importantly, because we really want you to take ownership. And if you get nothing else out of this, we want you to get to know your own body and be in touch with your own body, because there is so much intelligence. These bodies are so intelligent, and they know exactly what they need for health. They are designed to be in perfect health. So anything that we can do to bring ourselves into that place where we're following the lead of these intelligent systems, that is how we'll achieve health, not by some external protocol that we can bring there.
There's something that I share with a lot of the trainees in the hospital, especially in the ICU. A lot of doctors may feel that they are doing something to make the body heal, when in fact what's actually happening is the body is healing itself, and we're there to support it along its path and along its journey.
Yeah, that's great. And in addition to picking one thing that we're going to do in our lifestyle, I invite everyone to continue practicing the patterns work with anything that comes up around the physical body and health, and really using the tools that we've already gotten to achieve this health in our physical bodies and prepare our bodies to receive these high frequency energies. And then the other thing is to every day work with this practice of deprogramming and reprogramming the DNA. This practice that Achyutananda shared with us that is so powerful for bringing new information and creating a new body from the ground up. And then the last practice that I invite us to engage with on a daily basis is the invitation. This practice that we began in March of bringing the hands of Mary Magdalena into our heart and receiving the powerful frequencies of Mary Magdalena. So Achyutananda Das will guide us in this. And I invite us to fully receive these energies and to bring this practice into our daily life.
So let's take a deep breath together. And if you have a photo of Mary Magdalena with you, place it in front of you. And gaze into Mary Magdalena's eyes. And in that, move into the heart space. Move into that love. Move into that devotion that pulsates in every cell of Mary Magdalena. An embodiment of that. And breathe that in. Invoke Mary Magdalena. Call upon her. And into that space, activate I am tenderness. I am tenderness. Just let that sink into every cell of the body. Feel the tenderness that Mary Magdalena feels for each one of us. The tenderness that Mary Magdalena felt washing the Master's feet. I am tenderness. And imagine your hands as the hands of Mary Magdalena. See that light. These blessed hands. And bring your hands to the heart. Bring that sacred energy to the heart. Anchor that love in the divine altar of your heart, that you might come to it at any moment. And move the hands now around the body gracefully, filling the etheric body with this light, with this love. Move with that tenderness. And with every breath, Mary Magdalena. And sit in silence as long as you wish, allowing these energies to anchor deeper and deeper and deeper. More love, more light. Om Jai Jai Sai Ma.